What's going on? I'm back with Thomas, and we are going to be talking about Dynasty rookies and how they fared at the combine. And we're going to get right into it, Thomas. First up on the
Let's do
list
it.
is none other than Anthony Richardson, who blew the combine away. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but I actually think you and I were two of the early guys on Anthony Richardson here, especially for fantasy. So, what are your thoughts? Did he did he prove the point that you were trying to make before? Did he prove what you had seen by his performance there at the combine?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a one-year starter, and when you start your first couple games at college as a quarterback, you're going to struggle, and that's what Richardson did. And then throughout the season, he progressively got better, and it was just evident on tape that he's such an athletic freak. And I was like early on, this guy is like Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, somewhere in between those two guys, and he showcased that at the combine. Like he put up a vertical record for quarterbacks with 40 and a half foot vertical. It's insane. And I think my sentiment early on was that he is going to be a rushing threat, regardless of how well or how badly he's going to throw the ball. And we already know for fantasy, like the Konami code kind of guys, they're going to be great for fantasy. And if he's going to land somewhere where he's going to get the start early on, he might struggle a bit, but he's still going to put up numbers for us. What's your take on Richardson?
Yeah, I've had the same feeling on him. People they get stuck in this mind frame of this quarterback is really a running back playing quarterback, and who the hell cares, right? If Taysom
Yeah.
Hill is going to be at quarterback for a full game, I'm starting him in fantasy. It doesn't matter whether I think he is a good NFL quarterback or not. So that's first off. Like, you got to get out of that mindset. He's going to have draft capital high enough that he's going to get an opportunity. Now, I do think that Anthony Richardson is one of the rookies that could sit for a year. He is raw. He does only have that 1 year of experience in college. Most of the time, when guys go this high, they end up getting an opportunity at some point in their first season. We don't have a lot of guys that sit out a full season to start, but Richardson is one that you may have to wait on for just a little bit. The beauty, though, is that he's going to get that opportunity. I don't think any of these quarterbacks in this class are for sure. There's no Trevor Lawrence. There's no Joe Burrow where I'm super confident that we've got long-term NFL starters in this draft, right? Bryce Young, if he was 5 inches taller, I'd feel a lot better. But this is a small guy playing quarterback, and we've seen the struggles that guys like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson kind of negated it for a long time. But we saw when his offensive line wasn't tip top, how having those guys in the linemen in his face, that hurts when you're 5'10". These guys are
Yeah.
6'5", 300. They will block your view. But we also seen the Broncos go out and they prioritized offensive line. It's not that Bryce Young can't make it, but even if he does, if Anthony Richardson turns into a Lamar Jackson light, and that can help keep your job for a long period of time. And I don't care what anybody says. If I can get 3 years out of a guy in a draft in a first round, even a quarterback, then I'll take it, because I don't even know if my league's going to last 4 years. So, people want to talk about the longevity of these guys. They're going to get a shot. They're going to get a couple years, and none of them are guaranteed to get more than 3 or 4 years, because there's question marks on all the quarterbacks, even though they have good ceilings. But even then, Anthony Richardson has a floor and a ceiling, because no matter what, even if he only starts 35 games in his career, the fantasy production's probably going to be there.
Yeah. And I think there's even more to it because, like as you said, he has a high floor because of his rushing upside, but his ceiling it's basically astronomical, right? Like he could legit end up in 2 or 3 seasons. He could be the QB1 in fantasy just
Yeah.
because of how he's built. And even if you're then worried that he's not going to sustain that, or that he's going to break down, or he's just going to decline, you sell him. You sell him at the peak of his price, and then you've basically made one first round draft pick in a rookie draft into several first round draft picks down the line.
He's got the arm. He's got the arm talent. The accuracy is what obviously he's going to have to work on. But at the same time, people want to forget this dude was like in the Justin Fields equivalent offense in college, as Fields was in last year in the pros, where he didn't have weapons. Anthony Richardson did not have skill position weapons on the outside to throw to either. So that doesn't help. But as you said, only 1 year starting. If I'm telling you this, right? If Lance was a favorite of people, Anthony Richardson has to be, because this dude has a higher ceiling than Trey Lance had coming out. Both, basically 1 year of production in college to go off of. I love Anthony Richardson, and I think I would take him number one out of the quarterbacks in fantasy, just because, like you said, like if you have Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson, if he can get back on the field and find a new team, that right there, you're set. You're good.
Yeah. And I love, like, the thing even if he sits for one season, right? You're not like, there's probably a reason that you're picking this high in the rookie draft anyway. Like, your team's not gonna win just by getting a Stroud or a Bryce Young. So getting the quarterback that's gonna sit and perhaps hit the ceiling, that means you're probably, like, your team might be bad again next season, and that means you're gonna have a high rookie draft pick again in 2024. And if you're playing Superflex, and you earn the first or second overall pick, you're gonna get a Caleb Williams or Drake May probably, and then you can end up having like 2 great quarterbacks for your fantasy roster for the next 10 seasons.
Yeah, and the other thing, like you said, if he does end up playing, that could catapult your team from the bottom up to the top, because you're probably going to get a good player in the second round. If you're drafting 101 and you were doing your job last year, you're probably going to have at least another first and maybe multiple first.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to put some talent on your squad, and if you hit on a couple, this is a way that you can turn your roster around with that ceiling that he's got running the ball. Like, I would not be surprised if he did start the whole season, if he did what Justin Fields did last year, because he's going to be on a team that's probably not very good already. He may not have the weapons you would like him to have. Like, for example, if Carolina ended up taking him first overall, he's probably not going to have great weapons because they just traded DJ Moore. Yeah. But it's going to be a good spot for him to run the ball in those scenarios. Could just be huge production from Anthony Richardson right off the bat.
Yeah, and whoever's going to draft him, they're going to build an offense around him. Like, you'd be stupid not to.
Yeah, you gotta do what they did for Josh Allen in Buffalo, what they did for Jalen Hurts and in Philly, and then hopefully what's going on right now in Chicago with my Bears and Justin Fields. You got to take that approach, and hopefully they do it before year 3, right? Hopefully they see enough in year 1, make some of those moves in year 2 to kind of help quicker than we've seen with some of those other guys. But Anthony Richardson has just an astronomical ceiling.
Yeah.
But he could be riding the bench 2 years from now and
absolutely
and not be any good. But I'll take the risk on him when we could see the same thing from Will Levis and Stroud and Bryce Young for different reasons. But there's no guarantee that any of the 4 are going to be great. So I'll take the one with the highest ceiling with a solid floor.
Yeah, same. I think you and I, we draft the same. Like, we're very willing to take risks with our rosters, just because if you hit the ceiling, it's going to catapult your team. Whereas if you're less risk averse, then, or more risk averse, I should say, you probably should be taking a Stroud or a Bryce Young, because they might have a longer career, because they're better passers, at least right now. But I think, as we already talked about a little bit, like every quarterback in this class has things that they need to work on.
Yep.
Mechanics, like Richardson's issue is largely mechanics and accuracy. That's definitely something you can work on. Whereas you can't make Bryce Young taller.
I was gonna
Like-
say that. Like you can't make Bryce Young bigger. Like
No.
you're stuck with where it is, and you can't have. And the 204 at the combine, he drank
Yeah.
like 3 gallons
Yeah.
of water and ate a pound of bread or something because he ate 204. But yeah, I love Richardson. We're gonna get on to our first wide receiver,
Yeah,
Jackson
let's do it.
Smith and Jigba. And buddy, just go ahead and tell me how you feel about Jackson, and then I'll get where I'm going with it.
I mean, I know where you're going, and I'm pretty much there with you. When I started doing the rankings for us this season, Jason was my wide receiver 3. Now he's my wide receiver 1, and it's in part because there are question marks with the other 2 that I have in like my first tier. But like before this college season, JSN was basically the unanimous number 1 because he had an absurdly strong season with Ohio State, right? He's already shown he can do the elite production. And at the combine, like when you look at how much better, like he only did 2 drills, but when you look at how much better he was than every other wide receiver who did those drills, you're just like, man, like no one's gonna get their hands on him when this guy's running routes. And I think that's the reason I put him at number 1 now, because like if there's one thing, like when you see a player, you can teach route running, but if you're already good at route running coming out, you're gonna be good from the get-go in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean that's my biggest thing whenever I look at wide receivers. I can't tell you how many big guys I've struck out on because they were big, fast.
Yeah.
And that we get intrigued with that size and speed combination. This guy's going to be able to take the ball away from anybody. I'll tell you what's more consistent is a wide receiver that can get open on any route, on any part of the field, and that's Jackson Smith and Jigba. And
Sure.
I don't understand why people are so down on him. Obviously, he missed most of last season, and we didn't get the production that he had in 2021. But this guy was better than Chris Olave. He was better than Garrett Wilson, the 2 best rookie wide receivers from last year that went top 15 in the draft. Did they both go top 10? It was like right around there.
I think Olave went 12 to the Saints.
Yeah, so both of them super high in last year's draft, and this guy was better than them, right? It's kind of like the Jamar Chase, Jefferson, LSU combination there. Or if you go back to the DeAndre Hopkins day at Clemson with Martavis Bryant and just the amount of skill they had. I mean, those 3 kept Marvin Harrison Jr. off the field his freshman year. Yeah. This was a fantastic wide receiver core. Jackson Smith and Jigba only ended up playing 3 games last year, and people forget how freaking good he was, right? It's kind of like the Chase thing, right? When he sat out that year, and when we start going into rookie drafts, the guy that was number 1 overall, everybody started to try to find stuff that was wrong with him. It wasn't about what's good with Jamar Chase. Then it gets into the camps, and then it's he can't catch the ball. Jamar Chase has always caught the freaking ball. Settle down, you're overblowing it. And now we see him, with Jefferson as the 101 in most non-super flex situations. And it's kind of like that, where people are forgetting how good this dude was the last full year, healthy year that he played. He's always been my wide receiver 1 in this class. You know me, I try not to overreact to stuff one way or the other. But when I look at the other guys that are up here, I see way more question marks. I want the guy that gets open on every route, every part of the field. I want my Bears to take him at number 9 because Mooney and Claypool are free agents after this year, and I want Justin Fields to have his dude and their dudes. I want the Bears to take him at number 9 unless they feel they can trade back again and get him at 15 or whatever. But I don't want him to mess around. I want Smith and Jigba on the Bears with Justin Fields throwing to him, and the duo of Jackson and DJ Moore would be awesome. This dude, I'm in love with this game. I'm after Bijan and 1 QB, he's my guy. And then probably, after Bijan and 3 of the quarterbacks, he'd probably be my number 5 in Superflex rookie drafts right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Will Levis is the only one I'm not taking over him.
Yeah.
not taking him, but we'll talk
We're
about him.
We're going to talk about him later.
Anything on Jackson?
I just think, like, as you say, like, he's going to help, like, wherever he gets drafted, he's just going to be someone, like, the quarterbacks, they're just going to fall in love with him. Because, like, we saw, even when he was just doing the short yard shuttles and stuff, like, he is so quick on his feet. Like, if you line him up in the slot, and I think that's something we talked about a bit about yesterday, like, is he going to be a slot-only receiver? And, like, he has the size to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets as well, so he doesn't have to be limited to just being a slot right receiver. But even if he is, like, he's just so good. Like, he's just gonna get open. He's good. He's gonna separate from defenders, especially if he can go both ways from the slot. Like, you're just not gonna know what hit you, and he, like, a quarterback is just gonna love him and just gonna feed him because he's gonna be a chain mover.
He's gonna get peppered with targets no matter where he's at. I would love to see him end up in a spot. I kind of don't mind him, like, if the Bears don't take him, which would make me a little bit sad because I would love to see him in a Bears uniform. But if he does drop to the 20s, that's a better scenario for him in immediate production because he's not gonna have to deal, like, it'd be bad if he got stuck with, luckily we don't have a Zach Wilson starting this year. But that would, just like Garrett Wilson early in the year, wasn't as good, and then when they switched quarterbacks, it got better, even though they weren't good. But just don't want to see Jackson stuck with a shitty quarterback to start, even though that might allow me to get him in more drafts because he may drop a little bit in rookie drafts. So that's a catch-22 there, kind of. Next up, first running back, Zach Charbonnet. I hope that's how you say it. If I'm saying it wrong, shoot me. This dude he has moved up my boards.
Same.
Big time. Size. He kind of reminds me of A.J. Dillon in the sense that I think he's going to be a better catcher, receiver in the pros than he was in college. Yeah. I think that he's going to give you the unique ability of a potential workhorse back in the NFL. Maybe not to the caliber of a CMC, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, but he's at least sufficient enough in all the tools, I think, to be one of those guys, even if he doesn't put up the huge numbers that they do. We don't see that very often with very many guys at all. Most guys are going to be either, heavy on first and second downs, getting spelled by somebody on third down, or somebody that comes in on a lot of third downs and just gets sprinkled some carries on a series here and there, right? Like, we don't have very many guys of this mold that can do both sides, even if it's not to the level of those guys. So when I say workhorse, I don't mean top end, Saquon style or Austin Eckler style, but at least somebody that gets you more than just carries.
Yeah. I think what's really, like, you just said Austin Eckler. Like, can you imagine if the Chargers trade Eckler away and they just draft Zach Charbonnet? Like, Charbonnet is like, he's not as dynamic a pass catcher as Eckler is, but he's great hands, which means he's going to help out. And we know Herbert loves to do the dump offs to their running back when he gets pressured and his receivers are covered downfield. Like, Zach Charbonnet could easily catch 50 passes if he ends up in a situation like that. And if he does that as a rookie, like, wow.
Yeah, I think, obviously he didn't play out the same way, but, like, Mr. Algier over there in Atlanta.
Yeah.
obviously he didn't catch as many passes, but they also used 87 running backs in their offense every week. But like he just reminds me of some of those players with his size and the way that he moves for a big guy, with that power downhill running. And then you throw in, like you said, I think he's got the good hands. I think he can be utilized. May not run the same routes as like Eckler would in Los Angeles, but just having that benefit on top of potential 300 rushing attempts is something that Zach Charbonnet can definitely do in the NFL, I think.
Yeah, I think the comp that I've seen the most is James Conner. And I think body wise that makes so much sense. And I think skills wise it does too, because we've seen Connor when he took over for Le'Veon Bell when he was injured and out for the Steelers. We saw Connor do everything for the Steelers.
Yeah, we
So
still see him do it for Arizona
yeah,
when he's healthy. I mean,
exactly.
he was a guy that was RB8 2 years
Mhm.
ago. Had more injuries last year, but yeah, Zach Charbonnet. And the nice thing is that he's kind of insulated as long as he doesn't get drafted to one of the teams that have the Saquon or the Austin Eckler or Dalvin Cook, CMC, Derrick Henry. He's kind of insulated because he's going to get work from any
Yeah,
other running back. He's going to be in a timeshare with them. So I like that about him as well. Lots of upside with Zach Charbonnet.
absolutely.
Next up, Evan Hull. I can't speak on Evan Hull, so I'm gonna let you do the speaking on Evan Hull. I'm not educated enough, so I don't want to put out any dumb takes for you guys to clip and meme me on. So I'm gonna let Thomas handle Evan Hull here.
Yeah, so Evan Hall first came on my radar when I was watching the Senior Bowl. I was doing an article like who stood out at the Senior Bowl. So I watched the Senior Bowl and I tried to watch as many clips from practice that I could. And you could just see Evan Hall, like every time he touched the ball, you could just see this guy. He just wanted to smash into someone. He just wanted it so bad. And he's a good runner, but his biggest upside is his catching ability. I believe he had like 88 catches this season in college, which is insane. Like he had so many catches, and he is a great pass catcher. So in these full PPR leagues, he's someone that you can target late in drafts, or at least like in the third round, because like other people are starting to warm up to Evan Hall and start to know who he is because he's done such a good job. And then at the combine, we just saw him like every time he touched the ball, and I've never seen this at the combine before. Every time he was doing a drill, he just took it to the end zone. Like he took the ball, he just completed the drill, and then he ran the ball into the end zone. Even after his 40-yard dash, he would just continue running into the end zone. And like Daniel Jeremiah said on the broadcast, some team is gonna love that. Like a team is going to fall in love with that type of competitiveness. They're just going to draft him and they're going to give him a role. So he's super interesting, and he was basically like in the top 7 of every single drill at the running back position. So he's going to be great, and he ran a lot faster than I expected too. He's just going to be someone you scoop up late, and you're going to love it because he's going to get touches in as a rookie. For sure.
I'm definitely gonna dig in on Evan Hull, because one of my favorite traits in any athlete, whether I'm talking fantasy or just to put on my favorite player list, is the fact that they work hard and they do everything right. And hearing that he ran everything to the end zone, that's the type of stuff that I want to see from young players, because this is how you get an Austin Eckler, right? An undrafted guy or a later pick guy. That ends up popping is because they just work harder than everybody else. And if somebody's got that trait, I'm definitely taking risks on them in the 3rd and 4th rounds of my rookie drafts, because for one, they're all dart throws at that point. But I want the guy that's hungrier than everybody else in those scenarios. So I'm gonna have to dig in more on his tape and get some more information than I had from just the combine. So thanks for filling us in a little bit on him. Now, this is a wide receiver that, has decent size, 5'11", blazing speed. blazing speed. So what do you think about Marvin Mims? Is this a guy that's got a big enough wide receiver tree to be or route tree to be, more than a fast John Ross type
Yeah.
receiver, or is this somebody that's Deshaun Jackson like, right? Where it's more he's going to beat you deep, and that's going to
Mm.
be pretty much it. Obviously, we've seen a couple of years out of Deshaun where he was a little bit more versed than that, but what are we going to get from Marvin Mims?
I mean, first and foremost, we are going to get the field stretcher because that's where he did most of his damage at Oklahoma. But he's also going to be great at the intermediate level, and like we saw at the combine, he had a good 3-cone drill, which often translates to how you could get in and out of your breaks, right? And he's going to do that. He is going to be able to set up defenders eventually. He's obviously have to learn, but a lot of these receivers do. Like as we've already said, even the top receiver crop, we have questions. So we have that with every single receiver in this class. I just love how he combines his speed with route running, and he's not going to be a guy who breaks your ankles running a route, but he is going to be able to set up his defender and then make a break and catch the ball in space. So and then again, he has, even when he catches those intermediate balls, he has the ability to maybe make one guy miss and then take it to the house. So he's the deep threat in this class that I want. Like there's going to be a couple deep threats, and we're going to talk about another one in a bit. And I just want Marvin Mims above that guy because he's going to get the deep shots, but he's also going to do more than that for you.
Yeah, and it's so hard because in college you can just tell a guy to run deep
Yeah.
and you can beat him, right? And you can't do that in the pros, or very few guys, I should say, can do that in the pros. But I do, as I said, I'm not as versed on Marvin Mims as you are, but from what I've seen, there is the potential for him to grow a large route tree and or at least larger than it is now.
Yeah.
And have the ability to beat people in multiple ways. It would be great to see him land with a team that's got a good route runner that can work with him and
Absolutely.
and and help him. But there's people use this route thing a whole lot, right? There's very few Jackson Smith and Jigbas that can run a full route tree coming into the NFL because in college it just doesn't work that way. They don't have many guys running full route trees, but you want to see those instances of the 3-cone drill that lead you to believe that if trained in the right way, you can develop that route running. So I think that's something that people do use way too much, is that this person doesn't run enough routes. I mean, people talk themselves out of DK Metcalf because he didn't run enough routes in college. Not that he's the most premier route runner, but that's something you can teach. You can't teach that size, speed,
No.
and just power combination of him. You can't teach what Marvin Mims has naturally. You just got to nurture that at the pro level and develop everything else, and he could be a real solid. I think there's a lot of upside with him.
For sure.
Because of
And
that.
he has very solid sideline awareness, which is also something that sometimes we forget, that because like corners are just bigger and better in the NFL. They're gonna push you. They're gonna try to get you out of bounds. So when you have to make those tough contested catches down the sideline where the ball is basically gonna hit the bucket, and you just need to be where the bucket's gonna be, and then you have to make the catch and get your feet in bounds. I think that's something Marvin Mims, he's definitely gonna do very well at the NFL level.
Agreed. Will Levis, quarterback, Kentucky.
Yeah,
This guy.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'll let you.
Okay.
I'll let you go
Yeah,
first.
he's I mean he came into the combine, said he's gonna throw because he has a cannon for an arm. I mean, yeah, he like you can definitely tell that he has sip on the ball, but then he does the drill where they basically line them up, and then they use the cannon sort of to see how fast they can throw, and he just threw the same speed that everyone else threw. So I was like, where's that cannon of yours? And you just saw a lot of other quarterbacks throw basically like the same length down the field as he did. So I think I think his arm is not necessarily overrated, but I just think it's a lot more in line with what you expected. Whereas when you say you have a cannon and you want to showcase it, like I was sitting there like, oh, this guy he's gonna Mahomes it, you know?
He ain't no Stetson Bennett.
No. um, and I think for me, it also comes down to like we have Stroud and we have Bryce Young. Those are the guys who are probably ready to start right now. Will Levis is also going to take some time. Like if you throw him in there, he's just not going to be great, and you might just ruin his confidence. So I think he's going to need to sit as well. And when you have to sit for a year and then still be considered one of the best QBs in the class, you have to have the Anthony Richardson level upside, right?
Yep,
And
I was getting ready to say the same thing.
and Will Levis just doesn't have that. Like he's a fine runner, but he's not going to be a Josh Allen either. So I think his ceiling is capped, and I don't think he has nearly the ceiling that any of the other three quarterbacks has. But what's your take on Levis?
I've always been, my Colts buddies here in Indiana have talked to, at one point it was Will Levis that they were hoping to draft at 4. And I kept saying, you're overdrafting Will Levis at 4. I know there's teams that have, been rumored to like him as the quarterback out of this class. I haven't seen it. Like I watching his film, watching him play, like obviously the size, the arm, that stuff's cool. I just haven't seen what I'd like to see out of guys that are going to go this high in the NFL draft. And then, because of that, how high they're going to go in rookie drafts. And out of all 4 of these rookies, even if all of them sat a year, right? Like, let's say Carolina said, we're going to start Andy Dalton like Chicago did when he was with Fields. Like, as ludicrous as that is, if they decided that, Bryce Young isn't going to lose value going into year 2. Like, people are still going to be high on Bryce Young. If, Stroud sits for a half year or a year, people are still going to like CJ Stroud. I feel like the only one that could lose by not playing in year 1 or only playing half the season or a quarter of the season or whatever is Will Levis. I think he would be cheaper going into the next year. I think there would be more doubt about him than there are about the other 3. So I hate where he's going to go. I'm probably not going to have any shares. Unless I'm in a situation where I'm picking 6 and I'm really struggling at quarterback and I see him even with, the other players, then I may take a shot on him because he could end up being, a Ben Roethlisberger style where he's just throwing a lot and winning because he's averaging 40 attempts per game and whatnot. There is that potential, but I would really rather, he is my clear number 4, and I would really rather get shots of these other guys because I think their ceilings are way higher and their floors aren't lower. I think all these guys obviously have the same floor of starting a year and a half and then the team being like, okay, he ain't it, Zach Wilson style. So, there's just more upside with the other 3 guys. He's clear number 4, big difference for me. And I'm never taking him over JSN and I'm never taking him over Bijan. So at earliest I would consider is 6 in the super flex. And I would like to get a couple other guys ahead of him unless I'm really shitty at quarterback.
Yeah, I think there's another reason you could take him, and that's like you hope he becomes a starter fairly quickly, and then you can move him, right? Because that's always something that you can do in Superflex. And with quarterbacks, they're like if they amount to anything whatsoever, pretty much, they're never going to be cheaper than they are in the rookie draft.
Absolutely.
So I think if you just want to play the strategic way, you could take him at like the 6 or 7 or 8. And then just hope that you can flip him down the line for something more than what you paid for him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's a sound move. But if you want him to be something for your team, I just think you're gonna have to wait longer than probably with the other quarterbacks.
I can definitely see that. Next up, wide receiver, Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Okay, you're puffing. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I already didn't like him coming into the combine, and it's mostly just because how small he is. And I know there are small receivers that succeed in the NFL, but I just thought he had a pretty average combine. Like, and I know I knew he wasn't gonna like have an insane combine. I just hoped for more from his combine because if I'm gonna take a very small receiver like him, I just want to see some more explosiveness, and I just feel like I didn't really see that. Um, and then there was a kicker, and it was something that became clear to me while I was watching something from Underdog Fantasy. He has very very small arms. The Say Flowers. In fact, they said that there's only 17 other receivers who've had smaller arms than him, and the best of those receivers is basically Isaiah McKenzie. So all this talk that this guy he's small, he could maybe be Antonio Brown at the next level. I just think it's completely overblown, and I just thought he was more of a slot receiver, but he has actually played most of his snaps outside in college, and I just have a hard time seeing him win at the outside in the NFL because he needs to be like a historic level outlier to do so.
I have a hard time with Zay Flowers because watching college tape, I like what I see.
Yeah, I agree.
But I have the more and more time has went on, I have said this dude's gonna have problems at the line of scrimmage. He's gonna have problems getting off of press coverage. I would press him at 174 pounds every play, get hands on him in those first 5 yards, and delay his route running ability. And he's going to struggle, and he's not going to get open fast enough. Now, can he beat that? He can. He could be that level of good, but it's hard for me to take a risk on him unless he drops into the mid-second round, probably.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's about where you would want to start looking at him, at least for me, because there are just other receivers that I'd rather have that are sort of the same type as him, like a Josh Downs. He has much better production. Obviously, he's probably played for a better college team in North Carolina and with better quarterbacks than Say Flowers have had. But still, like he is like with Josh Downs, there's no doubt that he's just going to be a slot receiver. And he played that basically on every single snap in college. So you know that he can win in the slot. He can do everything you want from the slot guy. He's going to be small, yeah, but he's going to get receptions and he's going to get some yak, although that's not his greatest strength. With Say Flowers, as you said, there's just questions. Like, can he be a full-time slot guy? And even if he can, he probably has to learn that. Whereas a guy like Downs, he can just do it from day one probably. So I think that's a legitimate concern for me.
I will say with the reemergence of the nickel cornerback and how they are getting more aggressive and more physical because of the way the offenses have changed in the NFL, that worries me for any of these smaller slot guys.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm starting to really like the larger Michael Thomas style slot players that have size because they're the slot corners are getting bigger too and more and more physical. And excuse me, so all of them worry me a little bit, but Zay Flowers was like, I think he was my number 11 player the first time that I ranked my rookies. He was somebody that I liked in the late first round, and that has changed over the course of the last 4 to 6 weeks, even before the combine and seeing everything else. But you're right, I don't want a guy going over the middle with alligator arms getting freaking waxed by somebody either when they're 174 pounds. So it's real tough with Zay Flowers because I liked him a lot starting, and that has been fading, and I could just be way overthinking it because I do like the way he looks on college tape, but I don't know if that's going to transfer to the NFL level.
No, it's a definite concern, I think.
Next up, Sean Tucker, running back, Syracuse. This is a guy that I had as my RB3, RB4. Didn't do any of the drills. Why is he falling though? Just because he didn't do drills? Was there
No,
other concerns?
I think it's always bad when every other running back is doing a drill. I think it's the same for me with Bryce Young. Like Bryce Young, he has great college tape, right? So he's not taking as big of a hit. I wasn't a fan of Bryce Young not doing anything either, because when everyone else is doing it, like, why wouldn't you? You just, if you want to be the first overall pick, show teams that they need to come up and get you, right? And it's a bit of the same with Tucker. Like, obviously it's not great that he didn't do any of the drills, but it's also he's when you look at the tape, for me, it's a lot of like what he's done as a receiver. It's just a lot of screen passes, and if he gets good blocking, he can take it to the house because he's that fast. And it's the same for his running style. Like, he's a one cut runner, but he needs to have a hole, and he takes a bit to see it as well. So in the NFL, those holes are just gonna close a lot quicker. So he definitely needs to improve his vision if he wants to be anything in the NFL.
Yeah, my biggest thing with Tucker isn't necessarily him. It's the fact that a lot of other running backs are showing a lot through the combine and the different senior bowl game and all of that. We've seen a lot of guys really show a lot. Like Zach Charbonnet, who is now in conversation for that running back 3 spot. I like Kendre Miller a lot out of TCU. Deuce Vaughn, Roscoe Johnson. Like, these are guys that are like going up while he has just kind of stayed in or gradually dropped. And that's dropping him down because we didn't see any of that from him. This is a guy that could have been the clear-cut number 3 running back in this class, but if he's not going to show that off in mainstream, it's going to be a lot harder if he doesn't get, like, he could, if he goes as the running back 7 in the NFL draft, that's going to be a bad look for him on top of, not doing the combine and stuff. It's going to catapult. It's going to drop him down, and it may pay off for people that get him later. Like, I don't know that I don't like him as a player. It's just that a lot of other players have been a lot more exciting over the past 4 weeks than Sean Tucker has been. And that's what I think is really doing most of the damage to him at this point. And now it's going to be, pro day and seeing what the NFL thinks of him come draft night.
Yeah, I believe he's going to have his pro day on Monday, the 20th. So it's not far away, and I just feel like it's been far too long since we've seen him do anything, right? And it's the whole, like, what have you done for me lately? Out of sight, out of mind, all those kind of things. And as you said, like, every other running back has been doing everything that they can to improve their stock. And then you just have Sean Tucker, who's like, meh, I'm just going to wait for my pro day. And it's, he's just going to, he's been static, and everyone else has just been moving up gradually.
And the big risk there is if something happens at your pro day, you tank. I mean, look at Jalen Carter. That was not a good look for him yesterday. This is a guy that was in talks to potentially be the number 1 overall pick, had a little bit of issues come combine time, and then once he did his pro day, bit the dust. Not a good look when that happens. So you have to nail your pro day if you ain't going to do anything at the combine.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you have no more chances. You're out of chances after that.
Okay, we got a speedster here.
Somebody
that has, been rumored to potentially go round 1 in the NFL draft. A lot of talk about, I've seen him in round 2 in a lot of mocks, high round 2. But can he do more than Burn?
See, that's the question, and my biggest question, in fact, is can he even burn? Do you know what I mean? Because out of like before the combine, there were these expectations that this guy's gonna run in the low 4.3s or even in the 4.2s, and then he just runs a 4.4 flat. And
I mean, that's still burning, bro.
It's
That's
great.
fast.
It's great, but it's like, do you remember Traylon Burks last season, where everyone's like, this dude, he's super big, but he's still gonna run a 4.43 or a 4.3? It's like he didn't, and he's still a great player. And it's the same with Hyatt. I think Hyatt, it's just maybe the long speed isn't as much there as we expected, even though he looks really fast on tape. Like you see him on tape, and you're like, why is this guy not like why is this cornerback not 10 yard, like give him a 10-yard cushion? Because he just runs up to the cornerback, and the cornerback is like looks like he's turning in slow motion. Hyatt is like super explosive, which he also did show at the combine. So it's not like he had a bad combine. For me, it's just like he didn't like. And again, maybe it's just us building these expectations that they basically can't meet, these players. But I was just a bit disappointed. Like I was just sitting there, it's like, oh, we're gonna have a good time now. And then he had the 4.4, and I was a bit disappointed with that.
This is the big problem I think with a lot of people is that
for sure.
It's, let's say your goal is to make $100,000 in the next 6 months, and you only make 90.
Yeah.
Did you fail? Because I don't think you failed.
No.
And this is kind of the thing with the speed with Jalen Hyatt. Like, obviously, you want to see the higher number, you want to see the faster number, but 4.4 is still fast. Like, you can still burn dudes in the NFL at 4.4. The thing that kind of makes it crazy for me is that to be good, you have to have more than just that speed anyway, right? Like if we think he can develop in somebody that can get off the line on press coverage, that can run routes to get open with that speed, that's what makes a valuable guy. And it doesn't matter if you're 4.35 or at 4.4. Like a lot of the receivers that we love are not 4.4 Blazers.
No, that's
Larry
true.
Fitzgerald was not a 4.4 guy. You don't have to be 4.3 to be a successful wide receiver in the NFL. So my thing with the speed is one, I don't even care because they're running in shorts in a straight line on a track. I mean, if you watched Tyreek Hill run on that track last week, he made professional runners look slow. And he does make people look slow on the NFL field, but it's just not the same, right? Like, so my issue is that if speed was the reason why you liked Jalen Hyatt, he didn't get slow because he ran a 4.4. He's not as fast. But if you didn't think he could do everything else to still have success at 4.4, then I feel like your evaluation's bad. Your process is bad on these wide receivers, because if he runs 4.3 and he can't get off the line, he ain't getting open. If he runs 4.4 and can get off the line, he's gonna get open. So that's like my thing, is that you still have to get open no matter how good the speed is. We've seen the Darius Hayward-Bays that couldn't do that. We've seen the super fast receiver that just can't get open in the NFL because he can't get off the line. That's so important for those speed guys, because typically the 4.3 guys, the 4.4 guys aren't your 6'4" DK Metcalfs. Like, that combo is just not there for most guys, right? And you got to be able to get open no matter what. So the speed, well, it is disappointing. Like, I'm not changing my evaluation on Jalen Hyatt. I think we have to. I think he does have a lot of upside, and he obviously dominated this past year. But as time goes on, it's going to be about, do I think this guy can find a way to get open consistently so that you can utilize that? Same thing, Henry Ruggs, his rookie year, right? Like, having problems getting open. Devonta Smith, for about the first 6 weeks of his first season, figuring out how to get open in the NFL. It takes a little bit of time, and if that drops him, I'm going to want to take more shots on him, because I don't think he's any different Like nothing that I thought he needed before is different than it was after he ran a 4.4 instead of a 4.3.
That's a fair point. I think he might be someone that ends up being better for real NFL than fantasy, perhaps
Very, very
he
possible.
he's like someone like put him somewhere and he's just gonna take the top off of defenses, and then you're gonna see someone else flourish because he just makes the safeties move back on every single play because they just have to respect Jalen Hyatt. But I think if someone's gonna take him in the first round of rookie drafts, I'm probably not gonna have any Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, I had him as an early second, and I can't say that he will stay there, but it won't be because of the 4.4. That won't be why he drops for me as time goes on. Because 4.4 is plenty fast enough to win some races.
For sure.
Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah.
This is a guy that I was kind of disappointed in.
Same.
He was my wide receiver 3 at one point. For those out there that don't know, I'm not a Quentin Johnston fan. But I didn't see the hunger. It seems like it's been kind of missing for a little bit here.
Yeah.
Obviously a guy that was a top recruit, super high, perceived ceiling, and that keeps dropping for me. That perceived ceiling. The floor keeps dropping for me. And when you have the combination of both of those and the question of how much fire there is in a player, if something doesn't change before my rookie drafts, this is a guy that could go from my number 3 overall wide receiver that I was high on to a guy that I don't even want to touch in rookie drafts if he doesn't drop far enough to correlate with that, right? Like if he's going at, pick 108 in a 1 QB, probably not going to take him. No, I'm definitely not taking him at 108 in a super flex. But if he drops to the second round and mid-second round, then I'll take shots on him. Because if he gets with the right coach, the right system, then maybe that, stuff can be fixed. And again, when we get to that point, we're talking about a lot of guys that have a lot of different question marks. The guy's got the physical gifts.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's lacking above the shoulders at this point. When it comes to like game mentality, same worries we talked about Jalen Carter earlier and his stock dropping, the same worries that we have about him on the defense with is his motor there? Is he in it? Does he love it? Does he want to be successful? That's the worries that I have with Boutte, and that's scary because, like I said, I'm glad I'm finding out now and not after he gets in the NFL, because I would have had him. I would have been taking him at 106, 107 in a lot of drafts, and now I couldn't see doing that till 205, 206.
Yeah, and even that might be a bit too high. Like if he needs to put on a very, very good pro day to even stay in that range for me, because as you said, like he didn't look like he wanted to be at the combine. He was like it looked like literally like he was just clocking in for an 8-hour shift, and he's just like, anything else, and then clocking out, right? And I mean, we haven't really seen him much for the past 2 years on the football field, right? So for me, it was like I wanted to see him come in and show like, I want this. I haven't been on the field much. I want this. And he just didn't. And he was my wide receiver 4, so I was basically right there with you. And now he's continued to drop, and I think he's my wide receiver 10 right now. And that might be too much of a fall, but it's a bit the same as it was with Sean Tucker, right? Like I've just seen others that I like more because they show me more. So he's gonna have to show me something for me to move him back up.
Yeah, I think the thing for me and why I would take risks on him in the middle of the second round is just because that pedigree's there. Obviously a guy that was very highly recruited, very sought after. That doesn't always pan out. We've seen many guys that that don't turn it around, but the upside is there either way, right? Like
Yeah.
if somebody unlocks him at the NFL level, then it could be good. And I'm going to have question marks about everybody in that range. Like,
Yeah.
nobody that's going in the middle of the second round is question mark free. So I don't think a lot of the guys will have his upside either. If he does put it all together at the NFL level, I think he could be very successful. So it's going to be hard for him to drop below that for me, unless we see a Harmon situation where he goes in the 7th round of the NFL draft. And then you're like, okay, well, NFL teams do not like this guy.
Yeah.
But if he gets top 3 rounds in the NFL, even 4th, I'm going to take shots on him in that range probably. But if he did drop to the 7th round or go undrafted or something, we've seen guys do that before, go from being a top 4 guy to just out. So that's where I'm at on him. Let's go ahead and get into our prize pick of the week. It'll take 1 second here. But
this was a tough one for me, like I told you earlier.
It was, I mean, it is tough, right? And we'll get there. We're getting this pulled up right now. It's just loading in. We have, let me take this banner off. We have Mr. Derrick Henry at 1,300.5 rushing yards over on Prize Picks. Now, we're on different sides of this one, so we don't have the pick. You watching are going to have to make that third vote to break this tie. But I want you to tell me why you're going over, and I will tell you why I'm going under.
Yeah, so for me, it was a tough one. Like I thought about this, and I came to the conclusion that, like, if he's back with Tennessee, if they keep him, even though he's being talked about in trade rumors, then it's for me, it's an easy over if he stays with the Titans. Like they're just gonna continue to ride this guy because they're gonna be bad otherwise. Like if they just try to run or pass the ball, they're gonna be horrible. So maybe they just do that so they can get an early pick. I don't know, but like they need Derrick Henry if they want to win games. And Mike Rabel just strikes me as a guy who wants to win games. Like he's not gonna try to throw anything because that's just not who he is. So for me, if he stays with the Titans, it's an easy over. And then I thought about, what if he gets traded? Does he go under? And then I like, if a team trades for him, I just think that it's gonna be like a very competitive team, and they're just gonna know that if we just get this guy going, he's gonna win us ball games. He's gonna run out the clock on teams. Like, could you imagine he goes to, I don't know, like the Chargers or someone like that, if they trade Eckler, and then you're just like, we're just gonna keep Mahomes on the bench. We're just gonna pound it and pound it and pound it with Henry. I think he's gonna go over even if he gets traded, because wherever he goes, he's just gonna get carries still. Like, you're not gonna trade for this guy and not use him.
That's my worry. We're talking about a 29-year-old running back who has played in the NFL for 7 seasons. 4 of those seasons, he hasn't reached this number. 3 of the seasons, he's been just astronomical. 1538, 1540, 2027 on yards in those 3 seasons. 2 years ago, only played 8 games. Obviously, early in his career, blasphemy, he didn't get all the touches. But
this DeMarco Murray guy.
We're now talking about a 29-year-old running back that has 1,750 carries on his record. I feel like there are way more avenues to him not getting the 1,300 yards. And the reason is injury, age, and if a team really wants him for the stretch run, they probably need to insulate themselves and share attempts early in the season to where he may not get the amount. And his efficiency has dropped over the past 2 years to 4.3, 4.4. Still good. But when you factor in the age, the declining efficiency, we don't know where he's at, where he's going to play, who else is going to be in the backfield, how they are going to use him at his age, and injury concerns for a running back that's 29 years old. The more attempts he gets, the higher that risk is. So that's why I'm going under. Obviously, Derrick Henry is a monster running the ball. But I just feel like there's a lot more avenues for him to miss this 1,300 yards than for him to hit it. The only way for him to hit it is in a situation where he gets all of the attempts and he stays away from an injury that's more than, 4 to 6 games.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's definitely not a skill thing with Henry. You can't argue with that. This is a guy that's averaged 4.8 yards on his 1,750 carries, 8,300 yards rushing in his career. Majority of those, like 1,200 of them, were from his first 2 years. So the other 7,100 are from his last 5 years.
Yeah.
He'll put up numbers, but I just think at 29 years old, there's a lot more avenues for him to fail on that number, and that's the only reason. That's going to be it. We'll be back next Thursday at noon.
Yeah. See you guys next week.